Am I the asshole for not babysitting my newborn brother? My 16 female stepmom, middle-age F, had my stepbrother, 4 mallions, recently, and I've been paid to babysit him here and there. However, yesterday I had planned for a run in the evening. Basically verbatim, take care of your brother for a bit, I have an important work errand, stepmom. No, I'm going for a run, me. You don't have a choice, it's not even that important. My house, my rules, her. I said no, me. I just put on my headphones again and ignore her after that. Later on, when I eating with my friends after the run, I got bombarded by my dad for leaving my brother alone the whole evening. Apparently my stepmom came home to my brother screaming and starving and his diapers full. I argued I didn't know she was actually leaving him behind, and I had planned this run with my friends for a month since one of them is coming out for town. But they aren't speaking to me or giving me allowances. They said the instructions were given and I should have checked either ways before leaving the house. So am I the asshole? 1. My friend is visiting me for the first time in a year and I did inform them. 2. No, my stepmom do not pay for me at all. This house was passed on to my dad by my grandpa and mom. Most of the money my dad gave me are from the inheritance my grandpa left me. I can't access it myself though. My stepmom do not pay for my utilities or anything. Maybe babysitting, and it's usually very little. 3. Since everyone kept asking who left first, I went back to check the camera. BTWI was very excited to see my friend, so I didn't check. So yes, I did leave before my stepmom. But my stepbrother, entirely my stepmom's son 22, was at home the whole time. He usually only comes home at midnight in games, so I'm going to confront them and him. 4. My dad was home too. He left after both me and my mom left. I thought I heard the TV on before I left. Update. I'm too tired to argue with them. They kept bringing up I was 16 and responsible enough to check every room in the house before leaving and jumping back to I'm only 16 and I should listen to the adults. As for my stepbrother, he said he was gaming with his headphones and couldn't hear anything, and my parents deflected back on saying I was the one who was told to get the job done. Either ways, I'm not in a position to refuse their orders, so yeah. But I will check on my half-brother the next time I got to leave. It's just that I don't have that habit of checking, and I was really excited for the meeting. JFC, your family sucks, I'm sorry. They chose to have a kid but still willingly left the baby alone without making sure he would be taken care of. Could you have taken care of him? Sure, if you wanted, but it's still not your responsibility to make sure someone was home before leaving. That's on them, not you. Tell them next time you'll call the cops for knowingly being irresponsible for leaving a newborn alone at home. Should change their tune pretty fucking quick. Not the asshole. Look, Dad, name of stepmom. I will not babysit unless given 72 hours notice before, and an hourly rate of at least $15, and that's that. The kid is not my making, hence, 2, don't take care of it unless booked and paid to do so. I will not work for more than 6 hours at one stretch, and this is final. Not the asshole. Unacceptable of their part. Up the ante, tell them this child isn't your responsibility and threaten to call CPS if the next time they leave him unattended. Info. Who left the house first, you or stepmom? While she is definitely an AH, who leaves their 4-month-old with an unwilling caregiver? You already had plans and made your intentions clear, etc. You would also be in asshole territory for knowingly leaving a baby alone. Also, where was your dad, and why didn't either of you contact him before leaving the house? How many people need to be away from the house in an evening? Not the asshole. Why didn't the baby's mom make sure the kid wasn't alone when she left? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. Your brother and father were both home listening to the baby cry, and this is still your fault. Sounds like you were pretty clear about your refusal. But your family sucks. Guess your stepmother doesn't think you can say no. Am I the asshole for telling my sister that me not giving my child a vintage name doesn't mean she can't? My sister, 33 female, and I, 29 female, are both expecting our first baby. My sister is super in love with vintage names and for about a decade has talked everyone's ear off about how much she wants to have babies with these names. I know her top 3 names for boys and girls are Edith, Martha, Audrey, for girls, and Alan, Harold, Stanley, for boys. I'm not sure which of these names my future niece or nephew will get, but I know they are still my sister's top choices. My husband and I are not going for vintage names or classic names. We chose Lyric, which is pretty modern and not super common. My sister doesn't know the name yet, but she is aware of some names we chose not to use. We chose not to use names that could be difficult to spell or say based on the spelling. And she was upset we didn't have any vintage names on there. She made all these suggestions and I told her thanks, but we had a different type of name we wanted. She asked why we didn't want to have the cousins match styles, and she said how cute it would be to have 2 little cousins with matching old people names. She had this idea of doing this photo shoot when the babies are born where we dress them like grannies, grandpas, and she said the old names would make everything so much more perfect. I stopped talking about it when she did not take no for an answer. I got lists of vintage names, sent articles on how vintage names are in style right now. I ignored it all. She even sent me Instagram and TikTok accounts where influencers have babies with these vintage names and she's like, ooh, look how cute. Doesn't this name sound so sweet for this little baby? Doesn't the vintage name add to the cuteness? I didn't engage or buy into any of it. Now my sister is crying and saying I'm ruining this, and she commented like she can't use a vintage name for her baby because we're not. I told her just because I'm not giving my daughter a vintage name it doesn't mean she can't use a vintage name for her baby. I pointed out they're two separate people, with different parents and don't need to match. She cried it won't be the same, and why can't I see how dismissive my comment is? Am I the asshole? Why aren't I the center of the world? Why won't you just do what I want you to? Why won't you listen to me? Not the asshole. She sounds exhausting. Is your sister like this about everything, or is this baby name freak out an aberration for her? Not the asshole. Your sister had this whole idea worked out in her head without involving you in the development of it. Now she wants to implement it as it is in her mind, without considering your wishes and desires. You are definitely not the a-hole. Your sister on the other hand. But Lyric isn't a great name either. That kid for sure will be bullied for that name. We chose a name that's not super popular. Ma'am, there is a reason for that. The only thing you gotta think about for baby names is you're naming a whole ass future adult, not an infant. Don't be stupid and choose something ridiculous because then that kid grows up and now has to use it on all legal paperwork. Your sister doesn't get a vote on the of your child, that is for you and your husband to decide. However, Lyric is just ridiculous. Not the asshole, but Lyric is a wild name. Tears of joy. Am I the asshole for not letting my brother invite his new girlfriend and her son to my wedding at the last minute? I've been planning my outdoor mountainside wedding for a year and it's happening in 2 weeks. 9 people are invited and our intent was always to have a private and intimate ceremony. The family that is coming are flying in from out of state and we rarely get everyone together like this. Our parents, who are older, and closest friends aren't invited, but they will be coming to our reception back home in a few months from now. We have a house rented for a week, private chef hired, and everything is paid by head count. We're so excited to host everyone and have an entire week of family time planned. My brother, who is 42, started dating someone less than a month ago. He came to me last week telling me she would be coming to the wedding. When I told him no, his response was, if she can't go, then I won't go, and offered to share his food with her. It was still a hard no. Feeling forced to compromise, we agreed that she could come after the ceremony, which he appreciated. Now, he is saying that the girl is planning an outing for a day to take my other brother and his kids out to get to know this girl, and she wants to bring her 8-year-old son to the house rental. I again tell him no and said it's inappropriate for a young boy to meet our family after they just started dating. The only grace I will give my brother is that he hasn't been dating or in a relationship in several years. So he's very excited and I'm very happy that he's happy, but I can't wrap my head around how he feels entitled to this. He completely disagrees with me and is making me feel like I'm the one being rude and unreasonable. So let's hear it. Reddit. Am I the asshole? You are not the asshole, and I think you've gotten yourself into a pickle by not holding your ground. I do find it unusual that your parents and closest friends are not invited to your micro-wedding. Can you say more about who is invited and why? In any case, I think you need to call your brother and tell him that you've realized that it will not work out for him to bring his girlfriend and that you understand and accept that he will not be attending. Not the asshole. When he first threatened to not attend, you should have simply replied, I'm sorry. We'll miss you. You'd have been spared all of this escalation. With under a month's dating her, he seems to be treating this as if they've been living together for years. This is rather a lot of undue rush. I'm majorly side-eyeing this woman. After a month she shouldn't have introduced her child to a random man, let alone bring him to a family wedding and stay at lodging for family. I hope her child is okay. Do not let girlfriend or son be in any pictures. When they break up, he'll be trying to stop you from displaying your wedding photos if she's included. I would have probably told him to kick rocks, they couldn't come regardless. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. I have food in my fridge older than his relationship. He shouldn't be pushing for an invite for a +1 to a micro-family only wedding. Absolutely not the asshole, especially given the extremely low head count of this intimate affair. I wouldn't have even said yes to the initial part you graciously conceded on, and now they're pushing for more? Super rude and entitled. Not the asshole, but I am curious, why are your parents not invited? Am I the asshole for not sharing activities with my son's stepdad that include parental involvement? I, 31 male, have an 11-year-old son with my ex, Kate, 31 female. Kate and I were together for 3 years and then we broke up. A few months later Kate asked if we could get back together and still loving her at the time, I said yes. We were back together for 2 months when I found out she had started seeing another guy while we were broken up and she was still with him while we were back together. I told Kate it was over and I wasn't going to play around with that kind of shit and she knew I had watched my parents doing that crap. Kate's then boyfriend, now husband, is James. James had no idea we got back together until Kate's best friend told him. This was after I had broken things off with her again. Then Kate found out she was pregnant and had no idea which of us was the father. I told her we needed to do a DNA test. James said no we don't and he'd be the father regardless. He proposed while Kate was pregnant. She said yes, but they weren't married when my son was born. Kate asked me to be in the delivery room with her and she told me she sort of knew I was the father. This pissed James off, who was not in the room with her, and she sent him to work. It was messy. I think she wanted us to get back together when our son was born. But I never entertained the idea. DNA proved I'm the dad and Kate and I went to court to figure out custody. James hated it. He hated me instead of Kate for cheating. He hated me for choosing to stick around and parent. He called me selfish and said my son could have grown up in a simple 2-parent home instead of a broken home from the start. He engaged in a lot of alienation back then and for about a year I was given custody of my son while Kate and James had to attend classes and therapy. James did calm down a little and 50-50 custody was reinstated. James still hates me though and he can't be around me. Kate and I keep all contact via app. Kate and James struggled to have children together and lost 3. Their son was born 2 years ago with severe disabilities. During that time my son started to explore different activities he wanted to do and joined a couple of clubs that offered a more relaxed experience to sports and allowed parents to be involved. I was the only parent involved in that. Kate didn't want a part. James was jealous again and my son told me James wanted to go instead of me but my son wanted me there instead. So I continued taking him. About 2 weeks ago James approached me and wanted me to be less involved with these activities so he could be. He said we should share them and I should let him have one. I told him that was not going to happen. He started getting loud so I moved away from him and carried on with what I was doing. James then sent a long email calling me selfish and saying I know his only bio kid will never get to do this stuff so I should be sharing my son with him better and how my son doesn't call him dad despite being around since before he was born and blaming me for that. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. You need to figure out a better way to deal with James. Ideally he calms down a bit more. But having a fight about the kid is absurd. If you all can be there then that'd be cool. If he cannot handle that he needs to see you to be there then that is his problem. The biological mother can sue to attempt to get a court to say that she gets, like, baseball, but a court isn't going to see stepdad's feelings as so important. Not the asshole. James needs a lot more therapy if he genuinely believes a child can be shared like 2 people would share a toy. You have absolutely no obligation to James. He sounds really messed. If I were you I'd go for full custody because I wouldn't feel comfortable with my son living there. Not the asshole. But James is out of line and you need to tell your ex that if she can't get him to back off, you will take her to court to get full custody. It's unfair to your son to have this pressure put on him. You are his dad, and that has to be respected. Not the asshole, but the real question here is what does your son want? Has he ever mentioned that he'd wish his stepdad was at an event? Do you ever talk badly about SD so your son wouldn't even feel comfortable voicing that wish? All the adults here need to remember that the main goal is to raise a fully functional adult who knows how to manage things in the world without you at some point. Less time spent on how you feel and how SD feels and more time on your son's feelings. Not the asshole, your son is not a toy you need to share with the unfortunate kid on the playground who has no toys. Not the asshole. You fought to be a part of your son's life. You are obviously the more stable of the 2 homes he has and that's probably why he wants you to be the one involved, which is the most important part of this. Your son made the decision. He wants his dad to be involved in these activities. Keep being that stable rock for him. He'll appreciate it and you'll never regret it.